The 2025 US Open draw will be released tomorrow, Thursday, and just like I do for every Grand Slam, I am going to predict every round of both the men's and the women's draw. And I've been already thinking about who I'm going to select from some of the big guys. And it's a complicated choice this year, I'm not going to lie. It's been very confusing what's been happening in the past 3 weeks or so on tour. So I do think there will be potential upsets because some players are quite frankly exhausted. But let's see until the draw comes out, and tune in tomorrow. I am going to release my prediction video. But you probably know that the US Open has already started with the mixed tournament. And I do think this mixed tournament is great for the game of tennis, is great for the fans. It's creating a lot of headlines, and overall, I think it's been a big hit. However, as I said in my previous video, I don't think it's fair for the players who make a living on the doubles tour, and those players are the ones that generally play mixed, to take chances away from them to compete at a Grand Slam. The good news about this mixed tournament is that all the superstars are already out. Zverev out in the first round of mixed. He only won 3 games. Djokovic out first round. Fritz out, and also Alcaraz out in the first round. And you might think this sounds cruel, but I think this is great, because we don't want these guys out there too much where their singles performance could potentially be harmed. And on top of that, I think it's fantastic that Vavasori and Errani are in the semifinals and they're playing well. And what's so fascinating to see is that both Fritz and Rublev had trouble returning the Errani serve, which sometimes comes in at 70 miles an hour. And it just goes to show you, if you put enough junk on your serve, even though it's slow, it is tricky to return. I've seen Fritz miss a forehand off the Errani serve on match point, and I've also seen Rublev miss a forehand off that serve. Now, interestingly, Fritz returned the hardest serve ever at Wimbledon from Pericard with ease, but he missed the return off an Errani serve. So serving and returning is not all about power. It is more complex than that. Now, when I do my prediction videos, I do spend a little bit of time on certain players when I talk about them potentially doing well in the draw or not doing well, and I explain the reasoning behind my choices. But I'm going to dedicate this video to Tsitsipas because I have a lot to say, and I don't want to make the portion about Tsitsipas in my prediction video tomorrow too long. So Tsitsipas has been struggling this year a lot. In the live rankings, he's ranked 30, and if he continues to play like this, he's going to soon be in a situation where he's not seeded in Grand Slams, and he could potentially face horrible draws at the most important tournaments. And he is obviously low on confidence now, and he's in a dangerous situation where his career indeed can slip away from him. There's a lot of speculation online what's happening with Tsitsipas. And I'm going to share my opinion on the situation with Tsitsipas because I think there are a few interesting things to consider. First of all, the racket situation. This can become a mental challenge. And players of all levels can identify with this, because when you're playing with a new racket and you're not playing well, your mind often immediately blames the racket for the poor performance. In a way, you must forget about the racket and not think about it anymore. And that's obviously not the case with Tsitsipas because he's playing with a new racket. In Winston-Salem, he's playing with a similar looking racket that I've seen on Khachanov. This is potentially a new racket from Wilson that's coming out soon. It's a blacked out racket and it has a red Wilson butt cap, and I zoomed in on this racket and it's definitely not the Aero 98. So this is another attempt from Tsitsipas to find a racket that suits his game. Now, why is he changing rackets? Well, he had stated that with the old blade, he found it more difficult to generate power because the balls are slower than they used to be, and he actually felt some strain on his arm because he had to put more effort into his shots. And interestingly, he said that once he switched to the Babolat Pure Aero, he didn't feel any of that. He got more power, and there was absolutely no discomfort in his arm. So as I said in many of my previous videos, it would make a lot of sense to go back to the Aero, but Tsitsipas doesn't trust that racket for whatever reason. And at this point, it's unlikely that he's going to go back to it. I wish that he would, because judging on that result in Dubai, his backhand was better than he has been in a very long time, and he played a great tournament. But something else that's very interesting about Tsitsipas is a statement that he made a few months ago. And he said that the game has evolved. And I've heard this from a lot of commentators. I've heard it from a lot of different players. And I do think it's true. Tennis will always continue to evolve. Players now are playing with a tremendous amount of power. and spin. Everyone is physically top fit, strong, fast. A lot of players can serve over 130 miles per hour with ease. So tennis has evolved, but I've heard many players say that there are no holes in the players' games anymore. There are no spots to hit to. But I'm going to make the argument here that these players are not taking into consideration the mental hole that every player falls into. And this is irrelevant of the era that we're playing in, because after all, tennis is a game that's based on skill. When players have the same skill set, this is a game that's very physical, so players must be incredibly fit. Most importantly, when everybody has a high degree of skills, when everyone is fit, the mental game is the most important aspect in the game of tennis. And players, including some of the best, still have ups and downs in their games. So it's not like all players can hit winners through the entirety of the match, and the fact that they're serving 140 doesn't necessarily mean that they're serving well and hitting one ace after another. Players still, to this day, go through ups and downs mentally. And like I said, this includes even someone as good as Carlos Alcaraz. His level is up and down in many matches, but as I've said before, this is happening less and less, and Alcaraz is a new player. So if we take Alcaraz and Sinner out of the equation, because I do think that these guys are playing on another level, very comparable to the big three. The rest of the tour, while it might be true that there are no apparent weaknesses, everyone has great defensive backhands, defensive forehands, everyone is fast, everyone can return well, everyone can serve fast. But apart from Sinner and the new Alcaraz, all players still have a lot of ups and downs, and they will go through phases of matches where they commit a lot of mistakes. And again, these mental challenges of tennis will always be there, regardless of the era that we're talking about. Because after all, this is a one-on-one sport, and the way the scoring system is designed, and the fact that tennis is a game of errors, players will naturally go through different emotions on the court, and some players will handle these emotions better than others, and there will naturally be ups and downs in matches. And for that reason, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that despite the evolution of tennis, there's still room for players who don't possess that power that we see from a lot of players. Different playing styles, and potentially players who have been on tour for a long time, who might even be past their prime, still have a chance to do really well in big tournaments. Of course, I'm excluding Sinner and Alcaraz out of this, because these guys are on a whole another level. But I'm going to name you some players that are still doing phenomenally well, and these players are past their prime. Novak Djokovic, 3 semifinals at the Grand Slam level in a row this year, and Novak for sure is nowhere near his best. How about Monfils? He's still on tour, doing quite well. But let's take a guy who's a similar age to Djokovic and Monfils, a 37-year-old Manarino, who in Cincinnati just took out Mahac, Tommy Paul, and he took the number one player in the world, Jannik Sinner, to a tiebreak in the second set. So, if you are of the belief that tennis has evolved and everybody is so good, and there are absolutely no weaknesses, and there's nothing you can do, this is a terrible mindset for the game of tennis, because it's going to give you very few chances to win. I do not believe that Novak Djokovic has this mindset, or the results that he's been having at the age of 38 would be impossible even for him. I don't think that Monfils or Manarino have this mindset that guys are too strong now with no weaknesses. No, Manarino plays his quirky game that has been playing forever, and he's still able to take these guys out without having that same amount of power. And why is that the case? Because tennis is a game of skill, physicality, and most importantly, it's a mental game. And it's the mental game that allows players of different styles to still take out guys who might be stronger, faster, and hit the ball with a lot more spin and power. Now, we've seen even more examples of this on the WTA Tour, and the WTA Tour has evolved into a power game. It's better than it's ever been. All players are top fit. Now we're seeing more heavy topspin on the WTA Tour. We're seeing big serving. We even see some players venture to the net and play in a very aggressive style. But despite that, we are seeing players who will slice a lot, even on their forehand side. For example, Maria won the title in Queens by taking out an unbelievable amount of elite level players. And one of my favorite players right now, Ito, who has a very unorthodox game, slices a lot of forehands. She's in the top 100 and doing phenomenally well. So tennis has absolutely evolved. The level of players between 30 and 100 in the world is potentially better than in any other era in the history of tennis. But back to Tsitsipas. I think having the mindset that the game has evolved and everybody's so good is a very dangerous mindset to have. So this could potentially be another reason why he's struggling. Now, let's get to his coaching situation. And that interview with Goran revealed a lot of things about Tsitsipas. And Goran gave that interview in Croatian, and I've listened to it many times. So Goran said that if Tsitsipas doesn't solve the problems that he has off the court, he has absolutely no chance to get back into the top 10 where he belongs. Goran didn't specify what those problems were, but these were off-court problems. Goran said that things that he can improve on the court are of a simple nature, and the stuff off the court is more complicated. The interviewer then asked Goran whether Tsitsipas is willing to fix the situation off the court. And Goran said that this is very complicated. He wants to, but he's not doing anything to fix the situation. But according to Goran, whatever is going on off the court is what's taking Tsitsipas's focus away from the game of tennis and is holding him back. I have no idea what these issues are. You can look it up on social media. There's a lot of gossip on Tsitsipas. And I do think that the back injury since Wimbledon has been holding him back a lot. So I think he is in a very dangerous situation because his career can slip away from him. Even without these off-court problems, he's not in the right state of mind for the reasons that I explained in this video. And you add these off-court difficulties that he's facing, it's going to be very difficult for him to get back the level that he once had. But I do think Tsitsipas is great for the game. He's an elite level player, #1 ranked junior in the world. He won Monte Carlo 3 times. That alone is an amazing accomplishment, but he also reached the Australian Open final in 2023. And then, of course, he was up 2 sets to love against Novak Djokovic in the 2021 Roland Garros final. This guy's a big-time player. He won the ATP Tour finals as well. So if you take all this into consideration, whoever Tsitsipas draws in the first round of the US Open, he's going to have a hard match to win. So the road back to a better ranking is going to be a very difficult one. He's got a lot of problems that he has to solve.